Despite the economic downturn, research from HSBC Commercial Banking has found that businesses with smart finance strategies are not only more likely to predict a growth in the next 2 years, but also project a growth in exporting too. Well, joining me today to discuss many smart ways businesses can access finance, especially using trade and invoice financing, is HSBC's Head of Trade and Receivables Finance Europe, Steve Box. Welcome, Steve. Thank you very much for joining me.
Welcome.
Now, the perception is that banks are not lending any money.
Great first question.
Am I right or wrong?
Yes, well, I think if you look at the Bank of England statistics overall, the banking and the lending is down. But that isn't the case with ourselves, HSBC. So we put a pledge out for 12 billion of lending this year to SMEs, and already we've seen that's 10% up on prior year. International SME fund, because we're seeing far more people mobilise internationally now. We put a 4 billion fund together for the year. We'd bust that by September. So we've now put another £1 billion into that pot. And trading, invoice, smarter forms of finance is up 80%. So again, we're seeing more lending than we were in prior year.
And now this is for trading, obviously, overseas. Yes. So what have you noticed? What are the emerging global markets? Because more businesses now are looking at trading overseas. What's emerging?
Yeah, well, there's quite a few. If you look at an industry report to 2050, the faster growing markets, there will be 19 of them outperforming what you would say your traditional markets. But the big ones, obviously, China, India, Brazil, the BRIC countries, as people talk about. But what it is, I think it's consumer demand driving this. So we're seeing more middle class emerging. 37 million in China in 2010 to be 400 million middle class by 2020. And as a result, the demand for consumables, things that are nice and clean, sustainable, especially in their sort of environment, is becoming big demand. And if you look to certain regions as well, that we've got great experience around those areas, pharmaceuticals, biotech, clean tech, wind, not just those, but containers, the whole lot.
Yeah, and we've got it here in the UK.
We have got it in the UK.
A lot of businesses may be put off about coming to a bank to raise finance because we see that we've talked about, obviously, it has been hard to get finance. What top tips would you give for new businesses wanting to trade overseas and also existing businesses trading in the UK that are now looking to grow their business globally? How would they get smarter finance from HSBC?
Well, first of all, think about why you're going into those markets, collaborate, talk to people. But we now have international commercial managers, 200 of them. We have local branches where if you walk in and explain what you're trying to do, we can put you in contact with the right people. So talk early. Secondly, it's not always about having to have properties to pledge.
Yeah.
By smarter forms of finance, we look to the asset, who you're selling to, how you're facilitating trade and who you're buying from, importing and exporting. And we try to match the funding to that. So you don't necessarily need to be putting up your house as security with what I would call traditional forms of finance.
So if you could give, say, maybe one or two pieces of advice, top tips, for what would they do? Where would they start?
Collaborate.
Come to you?
Well, collaborate. UKTI is a great example. Accountants as well as bankers, we're all in this together to try and help fuel UK trade.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two is, we know entrepreneurs have concepts and ideas which are fantastic, and you will need people around to help you. So again, use that. Look to your balance sheet if you're trading already. Are you using the assets in your balance sheet well? The equipment that you may own that you could maybe sell and lease back again. The debts that you have where you've got good buyers. Use that to fund your supply chain, which is the invoice side. And as you're buying, use trade where banks can help overseas as well to facilitate and bridge that trading function for you. So, the facilities are there. The facilities are there to use.
Thanks very much, Steve. Well, thanks to Steve Box for joining us. And if you want to find out more about smarter ways to finance your business, then go to www.business.hsbc.co.uk.